This is the second prelude that we've seen that is very clearly based on a Baroque dance. But recall that all of Bach, especially the preludes, has a very strong pulse that more often than not is quite danceable. So all they're really saying by calling this prelude a dance, a sarabande, is that its pulse, its rhythms, are very clearly based on the pulse and the rhythms of the sarabande dance. Now, what makes the sarabande so interesting is that it's both slow and fast at the same time. So the pulse is indeed quite slow. There's going to be 3 beats per measure. But the melody can get a little faster, a little more melodramatic. For example, 1, 2, 3, 1. See how slow that is? 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. But you notice at the end there, the right hand started doing a little bit more. In fact, if you subdivide this pulse, not just into 2 or 4, but even 8 subdivisions, you end up with these flurries of more melodramatic, rhythmically loose and interesting, well, flurries. 2. Or over here. This melodrama is another one of the characteristics of the sarabande. The melodrama and the loose rhythm where we push and pull on the rhythm. The pulse remains steady, but sometimes we slow down the right hand. We make up for that lost time a little bit later on. And let me actually not just motivate this, but more or less prove this to you. I'm going to quote something from you. This is an eyewitness account of the sarabande from, 1671. So this was a little bit before Bach's time. This is from a book that I've shown before. This is Meredith Little and Natalie Jenne about Bach and dance music. Excellent resource. So let me quote some of the stuff over here. This is somebody describing a dancer dancing to a sarabande. Sometimes, with the most beautiful timing in the world, he would remain suspended, immobile, and half leaning to the side with one foot in the air. And then, compensating for the rhythmic unit that had gone by, with another more precipitous unit, he would almost fly, so rapid was his motion. Later on, now and then he would let a whole rhythmic unit go by, moving no more than a statue. And then, setting off like an arrow, he would be at the other end of the room before anyone had time to realize that he had departed. About the melodrama. But all of this was nothing compared to what was observed when this gallant began to express the emotions of his soul through the motions of his body, and reveal them in his face, his eyes, his steps, and all his actions. Sometimes he would cast languid and passionate glances throughout a slow and languid unit. And then, wary of being obliging, he would avert his eyes as if he wished to hide his passion. Now and then he would express anger and spite with an impetuous and turbulent rhythmic unit. And then, evoking a sweeter passion by more moderate motions, he would sigh, swoon, let his eyes wander languidly. You get the sense of the melodrama, but I want to mention the rhythmic push and pull that was mentioned over here. This is what Meredith Little and Natalie Jenne have to say about that. The allusions to rhythm are perhaps the most fascinating of all. Paragraph 3 speaks of holding up the rhythm for a moment and then making up for the time lost, which seems to describe tempo rubato. This is really the name of the game for this piece and what I want to do with this episode. You need to have a strong, steady pulse with the left hand, while with the right hand you have these rhythmically loose and interesting flourishes that are often quite melodramatic. So you need to keep the pulse, but also break it. This reminds me of Chopin. Let me, while we're quoting things, let me quote something else as well about Chopin. Chopin did this quite often, where he had a very steady left hand and the right hand would just kind of go off on the fritz rhythmically. This is somebody, I don't think she was a student, but she heard Chopin play and saw him teach students. She says, He would get very angry at being accused of not keeping time, calling his left hand his maître de chapelle, I think that's a kapellmeister, something in a church, think a conductor, and allowing his right hand to wander about ad libitum. Liszt says something very interesting as well about Chopin. The Chopin, this is by the way from Reginald Gerig, another book I've mentioned before. Absolutely amazing book, famous pianists and their technique. Excellent resource to learn about the pedagogy of the piano. Anyways, so Gerig says, the Chopin rubato has been thoroughly discussed by his contemporaries. Liszt described it to one of his pupils in the following way. I'm quoting Liszt now. Look at these trees. The wind plays in the leaves, stirs up life among them. The tree remains the same. That is the Chopinesque rubato. So we are looking to do kind of the same thing here. We want our left hand to be the tree, the trunk of the tree that is very steady, and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. While the left hand, or the right hand in the melody is rustling the leaves in the wind. So I'm gonna give you some tips on how to try to accomplish this for this piece. It's very difficult. I'm still working on it, but I think I have some ideas that hopefully will help you. After that, just want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about analyzing the piece, the structure, the harmony. There's not too much to say about it, but I want to give you a couple of tips to help memorize it a little bit easier. So let's dive into it. I think everybody knows before you can start breaking rules, you need to be able to understand them and follow them very well. So the first step to doing this rubato is to understand the piece very, very strictly, very, very rhythmically at every metrical level. So let's start talking about note durations. I said that the pulse, there's 3 beats per measure. Let's start naming them. These are, the way Bach wrote it, these are half notes. So you have 3 half notes per measure. First, break down the half note into 8. That means 8 16th notes, okay? There are a couple of 32nd notes in here, usually in the trills, but it's not a subdivision you really need to worry yourself with. So start by subdividing every pulse into 8, into these 16th notes. I suggest you can either count, you can try to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a mouthful, but it might be the best way to do it. You could also try maybe like 1E and a 2E and a. I'm going to go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to be very clear. And play the whole piece counting out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1. Whew. It gets obviously more interesting once you have the 16th note. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. Play the whole piece like this, very strict in rhythm, to understand how the melodramatic right hand fits in with the steady pulse at this metric subdivision of the 16th notes, where the pulse is divided into 8. Next, move to the next up subdivision. So from dividing into 8, let's divide into 4. So we take our half note, we divide it into 4, we end up with the not quarter notes. Eighth notes. My God. So now I recommend counting 1E and 2E and 3E and so the 1, the 2, and the 3 are your 3 pulses per measure. Your E and would be the 8th notes. So 1E and 2E and 3E and 1E and 2E and 3E and 1. Again, throughout the entire piece, play it very strictly, counting the 8th notes. Because you're counting eighth notes, when you have the 16th notes, you just have to be careful. You're playing 2 16th notes per every verbalization. So 1, same section again, 1 E and 2 E and E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3. Naturally, the next step after that is subdividing the pulse into 2. So we're taking our half notes and we're counting the quarter notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and. Obviously, now when you're counting the 16th notes, you have to be careful. For every verbalization, you are playing 4 notes. So, for example, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 3, and, oh, I counted that so weird, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and. I don't recommend going to the next subdivision. Well, there's no more subdivisions left. I don't recommend counting just the pulse, the half notes, because they are just too slow. I think we're hitting the limit of human perception of how, what I mean by that is there is some level of slowness at which we are no longer really capable of perceiving it as a pulse, as a rhythm that we can predict. I forget what that limit is. Adam Neely has a video about this. I'm going to link it in the description. But I'm almost certain we are approaching this. So I think the speed that I take this at, I mean, it changes obviously, but it's somewhere where the quarter note is at like 55, maybe 60, sometimes maybe a bit less BPM. So this 1 and 2 and, right, what I'm snapping at is about 55 beats per minute. So if we take half of that to see how many beats per minute are these half notes, the pulses, we are under 30 beats per minute. And I think that's about the limit of human perception. So I'm not sure how useful it is to not count the quarter notes, to not at the very least out loud or in the back of your mind think 1 and 2 and. It just gets too hard to really hold on to that pulse. So practice this very strictly, subdividing the pulse into 8, your 16th notes, into 4, your 8th notes, and into 2, the quarter notes. After you've done that and you've really internalized how the rhythm of the right hand fits into the steady pulse of the left hand, we can start playing around with that rhythm. So let me give you 3 tips, and 2 of them have to do with a Baroque style. The easiest thing is something related, it's called overdotting. I really don't like that term because it is too closely related to sheet music, and as I've said many times before, we need to stop looking at the sheet music as the truth. It is not. It's very helpful, but it's not everything. Anyways, what does overdotting mean? Again, if we're taking a look at the sheet music, what we're talking about is if you have a rhythm with a dot in it, for example, right at the beginning, a quarter note with a dot and then an 8th note. Overdotting means that in the Baroque style, very often it's almost like there's 2 dots over there instead of just 1. Let me explain it without the sheet music. It'll be clearer and more useful. The idea was as follows. If you have a long note and a short note, in the Baroque style, it wasn't very strict and mathematical how long was the long note and how short was the short note. So a typical saraband rhythm, which this piece is replete with, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It's written on the page as a dotted quarter note with an 8th note, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. However, you can lean into that long note a little longer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. If the dotted note is the long note is a bit longer, the short note is a bit shorter. I don't know how often it happened to go the other way around, where it would be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, almost like a triplet. But I think I recall that has happened as well. But I think mostly it's usually this overdotting where we have the long note be even longer. The point is, you can keep the pulse very steady, but whenever you have one of these long, short motifs in the right hand, lean into that long note a little bit longer and just make sure you land on the pulse. So for example, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, keep the pulse steady, but go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or the other way around. Play the long note a little bit shorter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Every time there is this feeling of long note, short note, try to do this. Think about just you landing on the pulse very strictly. However, you're maybe leaning into the long note a bit more or pulling on it a bit less. For example, even if the short note, instead of being 1/8 note, is 2 16th notes, like over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Instead of doing that very strictly, you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You see, I still landed on the 1 very, very clearly, but within the 1, 2, 3, 4, within the pulse, I leaned on that long note a bit more and made up for it with the short note, making it a bit shorter. Another Baroque style you can think about is the notion that a long string of notes, usually fast notes, so 8th notes, 16th notes, were not played very even. So very rarely would you get ba 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 bum. It would be more like ba 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 bum. You see, I'm still starting on the beat and ending on the beat, but within that, I'm starting a bit slow, then going a bit fast, making up for it. The point is you start and end on the beat, but within that, you can play quite fast and loose with the notes. The easiest place to practice this is over here. So when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, those 3 notes, so 3 16th notes, play around with how you play them. Instead of doing strictly 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, do something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It's easier if you don't count, but I suggest you try counting as well. Let's count the quarter notes. 1 and 1, or 1 and 1. If you continue with the same measure, you have another string of 8 16th notes, and there as well, as long as you concentrate on the pulse and you make sure that you end on the pulse, within that you can play fast and loose, go a little bit faster, a little bit slower. So for example, 1 and let's do that one more time on the next one, for example. I'm really going hog wild on the rhythm over here. The point is to keep the pulse steady. Just always make sure you are landing on that 1, the 2, the 3, but tug and pull on these 16th notes so that they're not very even and metronomic. Those are the 2 things that I really would recommend. It gets harder once you try to do this over the course of 2 pulses. So for example, in this section, I am not so confident that my 3rd pulse was right where it should be. I'm kind of curious. I think I'm going to check this out on the recording and see if it lines up. I don't have a good tip for you for that. If you have these long these flurries of notes that span 2 pulses, it's hard to tug and pull on those 16th notes while keeping the pulse underneath it steady. I wish I had a tip for you. I don't. Just really always constantly feel the pulse. 1 and 2 and try your best to feel that pulse, and then maybe it'll get a little bit easier. I'm sorry, I wish I had a better tip for that. The last thing I do want to mention is the fact that every single chord on the pulse is rolled pretty much everywhere. It's both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it can let you be very loose. I mean, does the chord start on the pulse? 2, and 3, and. Does the chord end on the pulse? 1 and 2 and, or is it in the middle? 1 and 2 and. It's a curse, however, because it lets you be too sloppy with the rhythm. So I would recommend all of these rolls, these are arpeggiated rolled chords, when you're learning the piece, play them as fast as possible so that you get the sense that they're rolled, but that they land strictly on the beat. Once you figure out how to stick with the beat and then play around the beat, then you can start being a bit looser and maybe end on the pulse or start on the pulse or keep it in the middle. But at the beginning, again, I recommend all the rolled chords, do them quite fast. All right, let's end with just a little bit of analysis and then we'll play the piece. There's not too much to say about the Prelude. The structure is very simple. There's a very clear resolution at the midpoint here where it goes long trill, and we end on A flat minor. The second half of the piece is a lot more sparse. It's very interesting, but it's a very clear structure. The harmony is very obvious. It could not be more obvious. Every single chord is right there on the page. At the beginning, E flat minor, that's your 1 chord. A flat minor, that's your 4. Naturally, next up is a B flat major, that's your 5 chord, back to the 1. What is this? On this next chord, this is G flat. Could not be more obvious. G flat, G flat, C flat. Again, could not be more obvious. E flat major, so on and so forth. I still recommend you actually pencil in all of the chords on your sheet music. It can help you memorize the piece, but it's quite obvious. And you'll notice pretty standard harmonies. There's a lot of diminished sevenths in here. So recall, for example, here in the section before the resolution to A flat, we've got this, this is clearly a diminished 7th chord. It's the diminished 7th that wants to act as an E flat 7. Let's take the E, move it down to an E flat. Right, we have an E flat 7. This is the 5 of A flat minor, so naturally, whoops, excuse me. A flat minor. There's a more diminished 7th, like over here, where it's the diminished 7th that acts as a B flat major, right? If we take this B, move it on a half step, we're on a B flat major chord, which is the 5 of E flat minor or E flat major. But pretty straightforward. A lot of these have diminished 7ths, a lot of resolutions that are quite clear. The only interesting thing that I want to mention is how fast and loose it plays with E flat minor and E flat major. Right at the beginning, after this standard 1, 4, 5, 1, we have some more standard chords. We got a G flat, to C flat, very standard. And then, what is this G doing over here? This makes this a E flat major chord, even though we're in E flat minor. So it's very interesting. There's more cases of this where sometimes it's C flat major, sometimes it's C flat minor. I find it very interesting. And I want to mention one last thing about the oddities. There is an F flat major chord over here. It makes no sense. It's after this E flat minor. An E flat minor that goes to an F flat major, which is just an E major chord. Very weird, comes out of nowhere, but sounds very, very cool. All right, let us play the piece. This wonderful, wonderful piece. Let's see if we can do it in one take. Man, it's been still so long since I've done this in one take.